everybody. Welcome to the December episode of Times Square Today, the official podcast of the Times Square Alliance. It is a chilly day here in December, but we are out with the people in Times Square to bring you a very special episode. Of course, I am with the president of the Times Square Alliance, Mr. Tom Harris. Tom, how are you doing today on this windy Tuesday?
David, it's always a great day to be in Times Square, wind or not, and it's a lot of great things to talk about tonight. We're getting set for the annual New Year's Eve event. We're hitting records with pedestrian counts. It's great to be in Times Square this time of the year.
Yeah, I mean, we teased it last month. This is going to be a very special episode, a little bit of an extended episode. So make sure you guys stick with us because we're going to bring you live in detail from the people that produce the New Year's Eve celebration here in Times Square. As you can see on my head, hasn't flown away yet. The 2022 New Year's Eve hat. Tom, you got your hat on. You're ready to celebrate.
We are ready.
We are ready to have people back in the canyon doing the things that they love, celebrating New Year's Eve. Right behind you, Tom, across the canyon, I'm looking at the New Year's Eve ball. The 2021 is up there, but 2022 will be replacing it very, very soon. And today we are going to bring you the story of how that happens. But first, Tom, we continue to set pedestrian records for post-COVID people through Times Square. What's the updated numbers?
So the Friday after Thanksgiving, we had over 310,000 people in Times Square. Our weekly averages have been around 250,000, and those weekend numbers are exceeding 270,000. So Times Square is back.
No, it really is. And again, right now it's December. It is packed here. And again, listen, guys, yes, it's chilly, but it's December in New York City. But honestly, Tom, if you're coming to New York City for a holiday adventure, this is honestly the perfect weather, right? It's cold, but it's not too cold. You can be outside. You can enjoy the city. You can walk around. You can go ice skating in Bryant Park, go ice skating in Rockefeller Center. And then, of course, head over to the crossroads of the world, Times Square, taking the lights, taking the people, taking the sights. Of course, taking Times Square today. If you happen to be down here right now, catch us filming this. But, Tom, of course, we're talking about numbers. Well, I'm not sure if there's any day of the year where Times Square is more packed than on December 31st of each and every year. Now, of course, last year we didn't do it because of obvious reasons. We are back. The first time back since the COVID pandemic happened. I believe this is going to be one of the busiest New Year's Eve celebrations ever, because people want to get back out there. But Tom, what are you seeing? What are you feeling?
I agree with you, David. We are so excited to welcome revelers back into Times Square. We want them to be safe. We want them to be fully vaccinated. But if they're comfortable, we want them back. We are going to be ready to welcome revelers from 43rd Street up to 59th Street, from 6th to 8th Avenue, and it's going to be a great night here in Times Square.
Well, Tom, let's talk about that, right? Because it takes a lot to pull off an event like that. So give us some details. I guess we should go back, right? What's the history of the Times Square ball drop? How did this come about? It certainly was not something that was always happening throughout the history of New York City. How did this whole thing start?
So revelers have been joining in to have been coming to Times Square since 1904. It was in 1907 that we had the first ball drop in Times Square from a top one Times Square. The first ball was made of iron and wood, and it was adorned with 125-watt light bulbs. It was 5 foot in diameter and weighed 700 pounds. This year, today's ball is 12 foot in diameter. It weighs almost 12,000 pounds, and it's covered with 2,688 Waterford crystals.
That's amazing. I mean, listen, you guys have seen that ball on TV. If you haven't seen it in person, it looks fancy. It looks expensive. I'm sure it is. That's why it's taken a really good care high above Times Square, where people like me can't get to it. But, Tom, the thing about New Year's Eve, it's not just the ball dropping, right? It's a whole celebration. There's live performances, there's activity, there's TV and radio productions going on here. There's really parties all across the city, but, again, not something that was always happening. So when was the first time that we had some live performances, when it really became kind of an entertainment venue?
So the millennium, in the year 2000, we brought live performers to Times Square for that event. Before, there were tape performers, there were performers outside of Times Square, but we welcomed them into Times Square, and they've been here ever since. So we're so excited to continue that tradition along with revelers this year.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, guys, it's not just Tom and his team that put this on. Now, we're going to get to Tom and his team and how involved they are. But listen, there's also involvement from the Countdown Entertainment, Jamestown Properties, and, of course, our friends at Times Square Alliance. But, Tom, 2021, of course, there weren't people here in the plaza. I mean, I guess maybe there were people, but it certainly wasn't to the level that it's used to being. It wasn't, I guess, an officially sanctioned event like it is every other year. So how is that going to be different this year? People are back.
So yes, so each year we have celebrated the new year in Times Square, and last year we wanted to continue that tradition. We couldn't come together last year, so we had some honored guests. The heroes of 2020 came, but this year we are welcoming the crowds back. We are going to do as close to the 2019 celebration as we can, and we're really very excited to be working with our partners at Countdown Entertainment, One Times Square, and of course the City of New York to make this happen.
And that's a great point, Tom. You talk about the involvement of the City of New York, because there is a lot that goes into this. A lot of different departments have to come together to make this thing happen. You have, of course, the police, you have EMS, you have fire response, and another department is sanitation. So if you guys have ever seen this celebration, right, we're talking about hundreds of thousands, millions of people in about a few square blocks. They're here for the most part of the day. They're eating, they're drinking, they're having fun. There's tons of confetti dropped on the plaza. And you know, the crazy thing about this, and it's honestly pretty famous for a lot of New York locals, once this is all wrapped up, you know, this thing happens at 12 o'clock. By like 2:30, 3 o'clock, it's almost empty and clean, and it's almost like nothing ever happened over here. And that's because of the amazing people of the sanitation team of New York City and the Times Square Alliance. And that's where we have our first special guest today, Mr. Joe Costarella of the Times Square Alliance, sanitation consultant, to join us and talk about that amazing work that it's done to clean up the plaza after New Year's Eve. Joe, how are you today?
I'm doing terrific, thank God.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure you're getting ready for a busy night. Joe, how many New Year's Eve celebrations have you been a part of?
20.
20 of them. Wow. So
but that's 20 with the Alliance, Joe. How about with City Sanitation?
I did about 3 or 4 with City Sanitation, came after the celebration to clean up.
So we're talking about 25-ish years of you working New Year's Eve in sanitation.
Yes.
And you keep coming back for more.
Yes.
So, you know, tell us about some of the operational procedures that go in, because it's not like you guys just show up, party ends, you guys come in. Like, there's a lot of planning that goes involved in this. How does that work?
There's a lot of planning involved, and like drills, you know, you go over with the steps of what you have to do. You start with big bellies, you start with moving equipment out of the plazas, then you start with locking them down. Everything is preparation, nobody knows that. And what happens is then everybody got to know their assignments. They have to know their assignments, and they got to complete them. Certain times got to be at certain locations. One of the critical things is the timeline to distribute the handouts. That has to be maintained.
So what are the handouts?
Handouts and hats. It could be.
Okay.
And you know, there's certain times, certain locations that these got to be done at a certain time. That's critical, and they're trained. Our workers are trained. Some of them are seasoned veterans. We get new people. I put the new people with the seasoned veterans. So the learner becomes a teacher. You know, he teaches the new guy.
So how many people are on your team for a typical New Year's Eve celebration?
New Year's Eve, so approximately 40, probably 50 on a 24-hour basis to do the other stuff. But probably 40, around 40.
Now, Tom, what is your guys' involvement? Obviously, Joe works with you in the Times Square Alliance. Do you get involved in any of those discussions? What's your personal involvement with that sanitation rollout?
So the Times Square Alliance are the co-producers of the event. We produce the event with Countdown Entertainment and with One Times Square. So it is our event. And if you think about it, the star of the show is the ball. And we produce a show that the whole world can watch and add to for everyone in Times Square and for everyone who's joining from the comfort of their home. So picture us as the venue. We set up the arena for all of the networks and all of the media to come and cover the event. We also put on our own show during the event, and then it all culminates with that pressing of the ball drop, and the ball descends, and we welcome in the new year.
So think about this area, right? Again, it's a big area, but it's not exactly the biggest for millions of people. And as New Year's Eve rolls around and it gets later and later in the night, it gets tight here, and it probably becomes very difficult to move around. So, Joe, how do you and your team get around to the different areas to make sure they're staying clean throughout the lead up to the ball drop.
We have people walking around with barrels in the emergency lanes. That's where you get, in the emergency lanes, where people get pizza pies and things that get delivered sandwich, and we wind up cleaning all that.
So the emergency lanes, is that a specially designed lane for emergency personnel to get through during that time?
Ambulance, vehicles, police, fire,
Okay, awesome.
So, David, we invite 1 million people to Times Square. We have the greatest police department in the world that manages them safely.
Right.
So each block has spectator viewing areas, several spectator viewing areas, and then in between those viewing areas is this emergency lane where the emergency personnel can walk down, and God forbid there's an emergency, we could get a vehicle down. It really is managed chaos in Times Square, and that's done with a lot of coordination from the police department, the fire department, the mayor's office of citywide events, the Office of Emergency Management. We all know our role, and it's a flawlessly executed Broadway show on New Year's Eve in Times Square.
And that's why I think this show specifically is going to be so cool. It's because I just learned something new. I didn't know that there was emergency lanes set up. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
But I never thought about it. I haven't necessarily noticed them in the past, and I'm sure that's the point. But it's a cool thing to kind of peel back the curtain and see behind the scenes of the detail that goes into providing this venue for such a massive event to go off at time, as you said, without a hitch. But one thing that goes off typically without a hitch is the confetti drop. And we're talking about tons and tons of confetti. And Joe, I'm going to ask you in a quick second how much actually comes down. But Tom, I'm looking up. There's no ceiling above us. We're just looking up at the sky. So where are these confetti drops placed within Times Square that just cover the entire plaza?
So we have people in buildings throughout the bow tie. Some places have confetti cannons and electronic means, but in Times Square, we want the authentic confetti drop. So we have people in all of the buildings surrounding Times Square that actually throw the confetti out a little bit at a time for everyone to enjoy at midnight. And it is quite the spectacle. You learn that gravity doesn't apply to confetti because confetti goes down, it goes up, it goes around. We have confetti coming down through July in Times Square if you get a good wind. So it really is something that you need to be here to actually witness, and it is great.
That's actually a funny follow-up question to that one, Tom. Joe, maybe this is for you. How far away from Times Square have you found a piece of confetti?
Very simple, all the way in Bryant Park.
Oh, so for those who don't know where Bryant Park is, so we're on Broadway and 8th Ave, well, Broadway and 48th Street. Bryant Park is on 5th Ave and 42nd Street. Now listen, that's about a good, 5-10 minute walk. We're not talking about like the next block over. That's a pretty far parts away. So that's pretty funny. And I'm sure there's been parts that have been further away that you guys haven't just seen. But Joe, how much confetti actually comes down? How much is released at midnight?
3 tons.
It weighs 3 tons.
3 tons of confetti. 3 tons of confetti of all of it. 3 tons of confetti.
So get that straight, guys. We're talking about thin paper that we just talked about. It's blowing all over. It's going up. It's going down. It's going sideways. It's not exactly heavy confetti. And there's about 3 tons of it. That's a lot. So how on earth does your team, I guess the next question, I should say, from midnight to when the plaza is clean of confetti, what time is it?
Midnight, from midnight when
it drops down,
right,
to when it's all cleaned up, how many hours does that typically take you guys?
I would say, we help out with the city sanitation department. They come right down after that, and by 8 o'clock in the morning, you'll get 2:30, 3 o'clock, a good part of it'll be done, but not 100%. But by 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, you wouldn't even think there was a New Year's Eve event.
So how on earth do you clean up 3 tons of confetti, most of it within a 2 to 3 hour window, and all of it within a 7 to 8 hour window? And it's still blowing around.
I'm going to tell you, because we're blessed with the greatest department of sanitation in the country, New York City Department of Sanitation. They come here with about 200 people, 200 workers, with all kinds of equipment, mechanical sweepers, trucks that pick up big stuff, and they work all night.
Honestly, if you're someone who is planning, a theme park or something that takes organization and takes discipline and takes preparation, you guys should just come down here and watch how this works. I could imagine you can do a case study on the execution dynamics of the sanitation team
Yeah.
before, during, and after New Year's Eve. I mean, it just sounds like such a detailed operation, and forget to go off so well. It goes to your point, and Tom, to your point, of the detail that goes into it. But listen, New Year's Eve isn't always perfect.
Right.
Sometimes the weather plays bad. Sometimes the weather, it might snow, it might rain, it might just be really, really cold. Has that ever happened to you in your 25 years, Joe? How do you handle that?
I will tell you, it was almost a problem back in New Year's Eve 2001. Snow, heavy snow. 2 days before the event. Piles of snow and piles of snow. I worked pretty close with the sanitation department to remove them because they couldn't put containers in certain stages, weren't complete. I had to get the trucks here to remove all the snow, and they worked hand in hand. And how they got rid of the piles of snow? A gigantic snow melter placed right over here on the corner.
A snow melter. What is a snow melter?
Snow melter is a gigantic piece of equipment, and it has a flame, a big burner, and it goes over the sewer. And you come and dump all the snow in the top, and it comes out like water right down the sewer.
Interesting. So, Tom, you were here with the Times Square Alliance at that point. No, you came a little bit
No,
later,
I came
right?
a little bit later.
So,
Yes.
have you ever had to see a snowblower in time, or snow melter in Times Square before?
So yes, I think somewhere around 2010, I'm not sure what the year was, it rained, I believe on December 29th or December 30th, we had a significant snowstorm, not a blizzard, but the city came in and you could not make a snowball in Times Square on December 31st. That's how good they are. They got rid of all of the snow. They were shoveling right up till the time that the revelers arrived, and it was a fantastic New Year's Eve event.
That's amazing. I mean, now, Joe, I want to go back to the 2001 operation real
Yeah.
quick because of all the snow that was there.
Right.
And obviously, again, you're planning this for a long time, and you don't know the forecast more than a couple days out. 2001 big gathering, New York City had another implication on top of that, of course, being the first or one of the first major events after 9/11. As you're going through all this planning, all this detail, all of a sudden, curveball, snowstorm, big snowstorm. How does that change your mindset?
You just got to do the job. You just have to do the job. You have to, the show must go on. You have to do the job. My mindset was that I worked with them. We had to get all the snow out of here and make room for the equipment and stuff for the event.
I love that. So,
You have to do the job.
what is the longest consecutive span of hours you've had to work for a New Year's Eve event?
I started 7 in the morning. I finished about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I actually waited until I saw my old friends from the Department of Sanitation. I hung out with them and talked to them about, want to see what their plan was, how they would do it. Sometimes I didn't get to bed until 3, 4 in the morning, which was like almost 24 hours being up.
Jeez. And I mean, it's 24 hours of hard work, right? You're not just sitting around. You're
No,
moving.
no.
You're planning good.
No, I've been walking around. I go walk around and check, make sure everything is being done. That was my job at the time. And now,
We got to get, Tom, we have to get Joe like a Fitbit or a step tracker. I want to see how many steps. Oh, we already have that taken care
I
of.
will tell you, the highest amount of steps I did on a New Year's Eve was 54,000.
54,000 steps. Now, somebody do the math. Equate that to miles for me. Put it in a comment up on the video because I want to know how many miles that is. But that's a lot of steps, Joe, for it to be 24 hours. So how many days are you allowed to recover after all of that?
Well, it was a couple of days. My body was sore.
I can imagine. Now, listen, I'm sure there's been a lot of wild, crazy things that have happened over the years in Times Square. I mean, everything's nice and safe, but I'm sure you have a crazy story or two. What's the one crazy, wacky, unusual story that sticks out that comes right to the top of your mind when you think about it?
I will tell you the most weirdest story, craziest story ever. I was right over here on 46th Street talking to the revelers, and I hear one of the revelers say, "Hey, Chrissy." And I said, "Who's Chrissy?" He goes, "Chrissy Teigen, supermodel." I don't know who she was. She comes over, greeting them, saying hello to them. And then she looks at me and says to me, "Do you want to kiss me on camera?"
Oh.
And I said, first of all, I'm thinking my wife's going to be coming down here. And I said, no, I don't think that's a good idea. I value my life. So she says to me, "You don't want to kiss me on camera?" I said, "No." The cameraman says, "You don't want to kiss her on camera?" I says, "No." So Chrissy looks at me. She goes, "You're married?" I says, "Yeah." He goes, "So am I." And I said, nah, I'd rather not. Anyway, she walks away, and here comes my wife. This is good. She comes over and she says, oh, hi. And one of the girls, the revelers, tells my wife, she says, you should be proud of your husband. Chrissy Teigen wanted to kiss him on camera, and he refused. So my wife says to me, the supermodel? I says, yeah. She wanted to kiss you on camera, and you refused her? Are you crazy? How could you do that? How could you refuse her? She's a supermodel. You're an idiot. So wait. So I says, okay. And I looked at her, I says, my God. She says to me, she's just probably doing a prop or something. She says, if it was her husband and he asked me, I would kiss him and say hello. So anyway, the moral of the story is here. You're married 20 years. You think you know your wife. You really don't.
Well, listen, I'm married coming up on 11 years now, and I'm not sure what's going to happen if I ever have the opportunity for a supermodel to give me a kiss or for me to give a kiss to a supermodel on camera. But, Joe, if I ever do, I'm going to be thinking about that story in the back of my mind, being careful with how I play that one.
Well, one more thing. One of the revelers looked and whispered to me and says, don't believe your wife. If you did, she'd probably get really angry.
Yeah. We'll keep it. It's a clean show. But, yeah, you might be right, But listen, that's kind of the crazy things that happen down here in Times Square on New Year's Eve. The celebrities running around. Now, Tom, what's your... Obviously, I know what your feedback is going to be, but what is your mindset as you see the sanitation team clean up in such an orderly fashion?
So, first, it's the culmination of probably a year of preparation and a year of coordination, and seeing City Sanitation at 12:30 when all of those sweeper trucks are lined up ready to hit Times Square. It really is amazing. It's proof of a job well done, and their dedication and hard work. Each morning I go to sleep probably at about 3-4 in the morning, and I get up. I'm back in the square at about 7:30 in the morning just to see how it is. And I'm always amazed that it is clean, traffic is opened, and Times Square is back to normal. And that's done in less than 8 hours, thanks to the hard work of all of the city agencies, really.
Well, Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. Some great stories, some great insight. Again, I learned a little bit about the emergency lanes, and certainly your Chrissy Teigen story you just finished with is a great one to end up on. So that is a great New Year's story to tell. So, Joe, any final words as we go into 2022?
Peace all over the world. I'm looking forward to coming here New Year's Eve again, and I want to see the revelers. That was the part that I really cherished, looking at the revelers' face, how happy they were, having a good time, meeting different people, and I love the excitement. I just love it. That's my wish.
You have to imagine there's an energy here that's unmatched anywhere across the world. And now you've done it 25 times, right? So does it ever get old?
Nah. I look forward to it. I had a boss before, Tom. I joked around with him. I said, then can't we do New Year's Eve twice? He said, what do you mean? July 4th and New Year's Eve. That didn't go over too well.
No. That's a once-a-year event. Well, Joe, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Thank you for your service over the last 25 years, keeping Times Square clean, not just during New Year's Eve, but all throughout the year. And hopefully we will be able to catch you on New Year's Eve. I'm sure you'll be busy running around, so I'll try to stop you and say hi for a sec.
Sounds good, Dave.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye, man.
Wow, Tom, that was really a fun experience to start the show. Joe came in with some honest stories, some great feedback. I learned a lot from him, and he just has a great passion for it. It comes right through the camera.
Joe is New York through and through. He's a typical Brooklyn kid who did well, and he really is part of the fabric of Times Square, and he's what makes Times Square special.
No, and listen, again, the sanitation department during New Year's Eve especially, but of course throughout the year, is so important to keeping this area clean for everybody to enjoy. But there's another department that is so important, not just on New Year's Eve, every day of the year here in Times Square, and that's the Times Square Alliance Public Safety Officers. And with that, we have a good friend, Cruz, who is one of the Times Square Alliance Public Safety Officers, joining on the show now to talk about how you guys keep Times Square safe during New Year's Eve, especially because, well, let's face it, millions of people coming from across the world. They're just walking in. There's no tickets. They're just coming in, getting together, making that community we always talk about. Ariel, welcome to the show. I am looking forward to hearing about this.
Thank you so much.
So, you're working right now too, right? I mean, you're currently on the job, but you're going to be here on New Year's Eve?
Yes, that is correct.
So, how many New Year's Eves have you worked so far?
So far, this will be my second New Year's Eve.
Now, I don't want you to give us too many details behind the scenes because obviously you guys are dealing with something very important in safety.
Yes.
But give us an idea of how much planning, how much detail have you guys already been given? How many have you had a lot of prep meetings to this point, or is that still upcoming?
Yeah, it's still in development. We have received several emails and just kind of a heads up on just the logistical operations, just what to expect as far as with the vaccination, proof of vaccination, and just large groups coming in.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now listen, guys, remember, if you're going to come out to Times Square this year to see the ball drop, make sure you are vaccinated and make sure you have your vaccination card. You will need to have it to get in here. It looks like, Ariel, you and your team are going to be some of the people that are helping monitor that and making sure that everybody stays safe so you can feel confident when you come and get with these millions of people here at Times Square that you are going to be safe, you're going to be healthy, and you're going to be secure. So that's going to be Ariel and his team. But Tom, how do you guys even think about developing that, making sure that that's going to be taken care of?
So we work very closely with the New York City Police Department. Our public safety team with Ariel works with them 365 days of the year. And we start planning for New Year's Eve before, we're starting to prepare for next New Year's Eve, looking to see what we could do better, how we could improve. And the big thing is safety. Unless people feel safe, they're not going to come to Times Square. So the New York City Police Department works with us to make sure that people can come in safely. And that's not just the revelers, that's our office workers. You have to realize it's a Friday, it's a work day in Times Square.
Yeah.
So we have office workers who are coming in, we have restaurants that are open, and we want to make sure that their patrons can come in and enjoy their food throughout the day, sit down, relax, have a meal, maybe leave, come back at night, and just enjoy the restaurants and all the businesses in Times Square. At the same time, we're putting on this huge show. So the Times Square Alliance public safety team works with the businesses, the restaurants in the area to make sure that their patrons and employees can come in and out.
That's a great point. Again, it's not something I even thought about, right? When you think about New Year's Eve in Times Square, you think that's really all that's happening. People are coming in, they're setting up their chairs, they're getting their spots, but you're right, there's stores, restaurants, Broadway's still open. People are still coming through here for business purposes. So Ariel, how do you kind of create a safe space for those people coming through and you need to move forward in, out, up, down of Times Square, while also keeping the people that are staying here and planting themselves for the ball drop safe?
Well, yeah, we actually work in conjunction with the NYPD on that detail, whether it comes from barricades or directing traffic. You know, we just work with them to plan out the flow of traffic, whether it's pedestrian or vehicle traffic. So, just to ensure the overall safety of everyone coming in and out.
So that's a great point, right? There's a lot of coordination, I'm sure, between you guys and the NYPD. Has to be, right? So how does that whole thing come together? Do they give you kind of a plan? Again, I don't want to go into the details of the plan.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's classified information, but do they give you a plan, say a week, 2 weeks, a month out, and you guys then run drills to execute, or how does that whole thing come together?
Well, everything is pretty much brought down from my director, and we'll be briefed about it. So far, I haven't gotten any details on that yet, but just in general, it's always we'll meet ahead of time, just discuss anything that needs to go down as far as planning. Just regarding barricades or any logistical or quality of life situations.
David, we have meetings with the police department, with the city agencies, and all the businesses in Times Square. We have one each year just to go over the event, make sure that they're aware of what's going to happen, what the nuances are, and anything that we suspect might be out of the ordinary. This year we bring that to their attention. Communication is key. We want to make sure that there's an open line of communication between the city agencies, the Times Square Alliance, and between all of the businesses and revelers in Times Square and us. So really we focus on communication, allowing people, putting information out, and allowing for feedback from people if they're having challenges that night.
So, I mean, that's really what, communication is the big word there, right? You cannot pull off an event this large, an event with so many details that go into the planning without a large part of communication really going well. So, Ariel, what does that communication look like with you and the rest of the team? I see you have the radio on, so that's perfect, right? So how does that communication look? Do you have like a direct link to the NYPD? How does that come together?
Well, we don't exactly have a direct link, but we're working in conjunction, hand in hand. They're always around. We have to relay information. You know, as for our interagency cooperation, we'll just go to the officers, and then if not, they'll come to us, captain, or and then we'll just go back and forth. And then amongst ourselves, we use our radios to communicate with each other. On anything that's ongoing or anything to expect, or
David, the city has a joint operations command post down at One Police Plaza, and we actually have a representative at that command post.
Got it.
So all of the city agencies, all the utilities in the area, the FBI, ATF, all of the city, state, federal agencies all sit in one big room, and they all can coordinate in real time and get information in and get information out, so that it really is a seamless event, and anything that needs to be known by those in the field is known in real time.
No, again, I can only imagine the level of detail that goes into making sure that all that is coordinated properly, especially down, you said it's down at One Police Plaza downtown,
Yes.
right? So a lot going on. And of course, if you've ever been to Times Square, you know about the famous NYPD booth over down by the ball, so they're coordinating stuff from there, I'm sure. But Ariel, you've been with the Times Square Alliance for a couple of years now, it seems, at least, right? How long have you been with the Times Square Alliance?
Well, I'm actually going to make 2 years, so it's not
2
that
years?
many. Yeah,
Okay, so taking New Year's Eve away from it for a second,
yes.
what's it like to work in Times Square every day? How cool is that?
It's definitely a really cool experience, just as far as just different groups, the culture, the diversity, and the art. Just it's an awakening experience, if I could say, and it's definitely rewarding as far as learning and just meeting new people every day and helping out, giving back to our city. It's a great experience.
What's one story, it doesn't have to be New Year's Eve, just any time in Times Square, what's one amazing story that kind of comes back to you that you think of when I say, what's the best experience you've had as a security officer here in Times Square?
I feel like the best experience is just helping out the public in general. It's kind of hard to just nail one event, but I just feel like giving back and just being there for the public is rewarding.
Well, that's a great answer, right? Because working with the public is not always easy. I work in hotels. I understand that as much as anybody. But when you're built for that, when it's something that you enjoy, it really is a rewarding experience. And Tom, I'm sure, I've seen you and your team throughout Times Square, not just the security officers. I've seen the sanitation team. Everyone looks, approachable, which I think is a nice big word here, because people come from all parts of the country and all parts of the world, and let's call it what it is. New York City can sometimes have that stereotype of being very aggressive and standoffish in a way, and that's not the case at all, especially with your team. So Tom, how do you guys going about bringing in people like Ariel that people can feel confident that they can approach?
So we try to instill in people the value of service, that we're a service organization, and that we exist to make things a little bit better after we're involved in it than it was before. Whether that's a block being a little bit cleaner or someone's experience being a little bit better. Maybe it's a lost kid. Maybe it's someone who you were just able to guide to that theater so that they make the curtain time. It's all those little micro events that mean, I don't want to say nothing to us, but it's just stuff that we do day in and day out that have such an impact and on someone's experience in Times Square. So it's really all those little things that add up to a great experience by everyone who comes to Times Square, and that's our goal.
I love that. Well, Ariel, listen, thank you for all you do in keeping Times Square safe, making sure that everybody that's walking around today and every day are confident and comfortable in their experience in Times Square. So any final words for you as we go into 2022?
Just look forward to everyone coming down and enjoying this comeback of a new year.
Well, listen, guys, come down to Times Square. See Ariel. He's going to be on the plaza. Understand, he's working. He's keeping people safe, so say hello, but keep it moving because he's got a job to do, a very, very important job. So Ariel, thank you so much for coming out today and sharing some time with us.
Well, thank you as well. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Ariel. Thanks
you.
for everything you do every day in Times Square.
Well, thank you as well.
You know, I don't usually pull back the curtain when we're doing guest changes, but I may just pull it back here right now, Tom, because literally Ariel stands up. He's not even out of the barriers yet, and he's helping people of Times Square. I mean, that is living proof of the great work that the security team is doing here.
And that happens dozens and dozens of times each day, with each one of our staff.
So listen, guys, we're pulling back the curtain here a little bit. Typically, you wouldn't see us in the pause break between people coming and going as guests, but yeah, we had to do that because Ariel, without even hesitating, hopped on, helped some people out, and that's what makes Times Square great. And that goes to that personality that we were talking about. People need to be personable here. Tom has a great team of personality, and Ariel is really a great personification of that. But we have another personification of that. Now we're going to go to the operations teams. And again, operations, these are the people that are putting everything together. They're making sure things are happening. We talked about sanitation. We talked about security. Now we're talking to Herbert Murray, who is in the Times Square Alliance operations team. And let me give you guys another pull back the curtain thing. Our table, our chairs, our power is typically set up by my friend Herbert here. Herbert, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Herbert makes the magic happen. So thank you, Herbert.
And you're welcome, Tom.
It makes this magic happen because
That's
our
right.
show wouldn't happen month in and month out without Herbert taking care of us, getting us set up and breaking us down. So Herbert, I'm really happy to have you on the show here today to talk about the operation that goes into a New Year's Eve celebration, because I can imagine from the operations team, it is madness.
Yes, it is, but it's a beautiful madness, you know, and because of the energy of the people, you know what I mean? They just give you that energy that you need to do what it is that you need to do to make everybody happy.
Herbert, how many Times Squares have you been a part of? I'm sorry, New Year's Eves, not Times Squares.
12 years is, to be exact, going on my 13th year.
13th New Year's Eve.
13 New Year's Eve.
And look, I mean, listen, we said the same thing with Joe. I mean, you can see Herbert is excited. He's ready to go. There's a passion here. It's not something he doesn't want to be a part of. So what keeps you with that energy to come back and do this again? Because I have to imagine you're working a long, hard day on New Year's Eve, especially.
Yes, and it is definitely the people. The people give me that energy, you know what I mean? If they out there and they standing around and standing hours at a time waiting for that ball to drop, that's energy. That's your inspiration, you know, and I get my energy from the people.
So, Tom, you know, Herbert's been on the operations team for a while, and again, he's been the first one to help us set up this show. So, how do you guys delegate what someone like Herbert's going to be doing operationally on New Year's Eve? How does that all come together?
So there are a lot of layers to making this happen. From the beginning, when we assist the police department in setting up, well, I'll take a step back. We have to clear the space. So we have to create a blank canvas.
So when you say clear the space, let's set that for a second, because if you look around, right, now obviously the cameras are kind of in one spot, but to my right, we have these big metal steps. We have the trash cans. We have Broadway up close. We have stanchions. We have garbage
a public
cans.
art project. We have the show globes. We have a whole bunch of street furniture. So that has to all be cleared and stored before the event happens. So the operations team is busy in the days before clearing that from the area, making sure that the place is safe to welcome in the event. So at about, and we've already started to load in the event. We saw the temporary poles coming in. You're going to see cabling go in from here to Central Park for the feed for the speakers. You're going to see production trucks start to load in. You're going to see stages being built beginning December 26th. There are 3 stages that are built. Speakers set up throughout the area. So Herbert is going to make sure that space is clear for everyone to set it up. And then the event happens. They help with the event, handing out the gifts, the swag that we give to people, like the hats and mittens and anything else that we have. He also makes sure that if someone brings something in that they're not allowed, that we discard it for them and we help get it to city sanitation. And then when the ball drops, we have to set it up all again. So there's no rest for the weary. So our operations team doesn't stop working at midnight. They continue working into the first week of January as we restore Times Square.
So Herbert, what's that look like for you? Give us kind of a rundown of a typical New Year's Eve celebration for you, from the lead up to the breakdown and the reset of Times Square. What's that all looking like?
It's just the energy. You know, the people is excited to be here in Times Square, anticipating the ball drop, and I feed off that energy.
So what is the longest shift you've worked for New Year's Eve?
Well, I work 22 hours, you know, preparing, sleeping overnight, and preparing and getting it ready to go on at New Year's Eve and make everything happen, giving out all the gifts and the hats and the gloves and so on and so forth. It's just a wonderful time of the year.
That's so awesome. And so, what is, you know, again, we see a lot of us that have not come here before or that have been in other parts of the world see it on TV, and obviously it's very production value, right? I mean, and when I say production value, I mean there's a production going on,
Yes.
right? From seeing it on TV in the past, potentially, to what you see in person, how is that different?
Oh, it's absolutely different. I mean, the energy level is not as the same. You know, watching TV, you just look at it and you oh, wow. But when you're there personally, you know what I mean? It's just the energy that you feed off. And it just gets you to, you don't even worry about the cold.
Right.
You know, because you're constantly moving, making people happy. I'm happy. People happy, giving out the balloons, giving out the hats. This is the energy that keep people warm, the beautiful gifts that we give out.
I think that's a great point. I mean, you know, listen, you look at the weather for New Year's Eve in New York City, and it can get quite chilly, kind of how it is today, Tom. But, you know, that's a great point about, you know, the energy and the crowds and the, you know, kind of being that natural heat source where you're not even really focusing on it being potentially 32 degrees out.
Absolutely.
You're just enjoying yourself. So do you feel the same way, Tom?
Sometimes when it's raining out, sometimes when it's cold. I'll be honest, Herb, you're tougher than me, because there have been some years where I think I changed my clothes 4 times and all of them got soaking wet. And there were years that it was so cold, I had a sanitation worker jumpsuit on just to try to stay warm. But to Herbert's point, there's that energy. And what folks don't realize is that as this event is happening in Times Square, in addition to the event in Times Square, we have about a dozen to 18 live shows that are going on all at once. All the different networks have a show, the radios have a show, and we're doing that in the midst of this umbrella where we have 1 million spectators in Times Square. So it really is a phenomenal accomplishment.
Yes.
So was that, for your first time doing this, was that a little bit daunting for you, Herbert?
But it daunted to me. Yeah, I could say that, because it was something different. You know, it was a new experience just to be out there when the degrees is like 30 below, or maybe that even colder, you know. But yes, it's just a challenge to be out there. But it's always the energy of the people that I feed off, and that's what gets me throughout the day.
I love that. Now, what is something that, you know, that is operationally challenging, but for someone who didn't know it was happening, you know, they wouldn't even know it was there? Like, what is something that you really have to focus on to make it smooth for everybody else out here?
Well, the one thing that we have to make it smooth when we give out the gifts, the hats, the balloon, because the people becomes aggressive on one of those things, you know, and sometimes they're pushed where they push the barricade over. So when they're doing that, we have to be smart enough and back off, you know, and go elsewhere until they cooperate, to not to lean too much on the barricades so the barricades don't fall off. So that is the challenge that we face.
Well, that's an interesting point again, right? I mean, again, on TV, you see everybody with the hats, you see them with the wavers, the clappers, but they have to get those somehow,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And
yes.
that's your team doing that.
That's our team doing it.
So how do you do that? How do you get millions of people this swag, these handouts, in a reasonable amount of time and safely?
Well, we try to ask for their cooperation. One thing we do not, under no circumstances, throw the hats.
Okay.
Because they will fight for the hats.
Interesting.
And they will cause problems. So when we see that it's getting out of control, we have to get out of that space, you know, so they can calm down. And then they want the hats. So we'll go back, and then they'll cooperate more.
I think that's a great point. Again, something I never would have thought about. I'm sure people don't think about, but that's a great point of keeping, as you said, Tom, organized chaos in a way, and that's a technique to keep that organized chaos. So, Herbert, again, being in 13 Times Square New Year's Eve celebrations, sure, something's come up that's been wacky, wild, something that's kind of made you say, wow, only in New York. If I say, give me one story, what is that story?
Well, the aftermath of when everybody leaves, it'd be so much trash. And then 4 or 5 hours, that trash disappears. And the Times Square is back on its regular day. And you really even notice that it was a New Year's Eve bash.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because of how we organized and how we cleaned Times Square after the math.
Yeah, and we were just talking about that with Joe, Tom.
Yes.
I mean, that program to get Times Square clean. For you, Herbert, to say that, and listen, guys, Herbert wasn't listening to our show prior. He just said that on his own accord.
Yes.
But it really makes a big impact. So, Herbert, what are you looking to get out of this year's New Year's Eve celebration, being the first one back from the pandemic?
The energy, the people. The people, I feed off the people, and that's what gives me my energy. And I know they want to be here also. So we vibe off each other. This is why we feed off and do what we do and give them the gift that we give so they can be happy. This is a very happy time in Times Square. And this will give us a new start for the new year. So they can, so we can start planning for the year to follow.
No, I love that. And Tom, again, this all goes back. Someone like Herbert being part of your team, he goes into that whole experience, right? I mean, Herbert's handing out swag. He's making people's night energetic and happy, but he's smart enough to realize when it's about to get out of control, right? And there's a thin line there, guys. It's really not easy to do. I mean, you might think it is. It's really not. To be able to see the situation developing before it actually develops. So kudos to you, Herbert. I need you to go get some rest and get ready for New Year's Eve, right?
Yes.
It's going to be a long few days for you, Tom. As you know, there's a lot that goes into that. So any final words for Herbert, Tom?
So just Herbert's energy inspires me. You see how his and I don't know if you can use this word now, but his energy is infectious.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can use that in 2021, but Herbert, your energy, your excitement is infectious. My New Year's Eve story about Herbert. He doesn't even remember this. As people come into the spectator areas, the police department doesn't let them bring certain things in. Oftentimes, they don't understand English. And we had a lady one year who threw away her passport in a bag. And I remember Herbert looking for hours and hours until he found that passport and was so happy to return it to that person. And that's something that when he told me what he was doing, I just thought, let's talk about a needle in a haystack. But Herbert was tenacious, and he knew that this mattered to this lady, and he didn't stop until he did it. So that is my most amazing New Year's Eve story.
I can't let that story just go by the wayside. I need to talk about that for a second. I'm sorry. You found a passport in the trash of Times Square New Year's Eve celebration.
Yes.
So, 2 questions on that. One, how did you even know where to look?
Well, because when they have their backpack, you're not allowed to bring heavy things inside the celebration. So we know where it was at, but it was so much. You had to dig and look through the bags and whatnot. And ultimately, I found what the passport.
Why, Herbert? I understand why, but why? Tell people why that was so important to you.
Because, I'm a person who loves to smile, and I want to put smile on other people's faces. You know what I mean? She really appreciated it. She even gave me a hug for doing that. And I just felt good, and that she felt good. And I feed off her energy. Fed off her energy.
That's awesome. Tom, thank you for sharing that story. I mean, that's a great story, and a really great way to wrap up our conversation with Herbert, because Herbert is the operations team that's going to make your trip to Times Square happen, whatever it is, including if you lost your passport in the trash. So, Herbert, thank you so much for joining us today. It's always great to see you here when we do our Sunday Urban Breaking Down, and it was great to talk to you a little bit.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Herbie.
And you're welcome, Tom. Thank you.
Tom, wow, I mean, that's a story. I mean, that is a story.
It is.
I mean, again, you can see the passion Herbert has for people, for Times Square, for the energy of the entire plaza. But to just, without question, jump in and start looking for a passport in the trash, a lot of trash, and then able to find it and make that person's New Year's Eve day that much more special, that just shows, one, how Herbert is such a special person. You saw Ariel jump in and help the people over here as we were switching out the guests. Really kudos to you and your entire team and the team that you and your executive level team have developed to have people like that on your staff.
We have a fantastic team. They really care, and Herbie and Ariel are what makes Times Square Times Square. Their energy, their passion for what they do is what makes this a neighborhood.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But listen, guys, you don't just have to come out to New Year's Eve on 12/31 to celebrate New Year's Eve. You can get involved in the celebration leading up to it. There's a couple different events that happen here in Times Square where you can be a part of it without actually being here on 12/31. Of course, we want you to be, but if you can't be, you can do what's called the wishing wall. Now, Tom, it's a way for people to get their New Year's Eve wishes into the plaza on Times Square. We talked about the tons of confetti that fall from all the rooftops around here. Give us more about what the wishing wall is.
So the wishing wall is an opportunity for people to come out to Times Square every day from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Or you could also do it digitally. If you can't get to Times Square, you could go to our website, look up the wishing wall, and you could make your wish. We will transfer that wish onto a piece of confetti, and then at midnight, when all of that confetti falls, your wishes will fall from the sky onto Times Square as we ring in 2022.
How cool is that? That you can have your personal wish dropped in the heart of the world for New Year's Eve, where all of the eyes across the world will be on. You just got to just go online to tsq.org, search the wishing wall, or come here and drop it off in person. And then, of course, come out here on 12/31 and see if you can find your wish falling from the sky. We're going to challenge Herbert to find one specific wish.
That's right. And if anyone has the stick-to-itiveness to do it, it's Herbert. David, New Year's means so much. There's so much symbolism involved. It's a time that we reflect on the past. We look forward to the future, and we celebrate the present. So we're so glad that we're welcoming people back to Times Square for that. The wishing wall is just one way that you can sort of reflect on the past and just wish for something better for 2022 and for the future. We have other things going on.
Well, we're going from good wishes, well wishes,
to good riddance.
To good riddance. We want to forget the things of 2021 that have caused us to stress, and we're going to add 2020 in that as well. We didn't have a 2021 or 2020 into 2021 celebration. Talk to me about good riddance. It sounds like a place a lot of people will want to come to.
So yes, on December 28th, it's Good Riddance Day in Times Square. You can come out to our pedestrian plazas, and it's just a way of saying goodbye, good riddance to the things that you don't want to take into 2022. So we're going to have a meaningful celebration this year, and there's a lot that we all want to say good riddance to this year.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
And listen, you guys can come out. You can toss, smash, shred, break, do anything you want within legal ramifications in the plaza in Times Square to say, I'm leaving you behind. I'm going to 2022 with a great mindset and a great opportunity. One thing we're not going to want to smash here, of course, is Times Square today, because I'm having so much fun doing this, Tom. But listen, if you can't make it to Times Square, you can enjoy the live webcast. Now, of course, it's going to be on a lot of TV channels, but why would you want to watch it on a TV channel when you can watch the official Times Square Alliance broadcast on the live webcast? Just tune in. Commercial-free webcast coverage, by the way, so no commercials involved. You can see the ball drop from the people that are producing the show, the Times Square Alliance. Tom, what's that about?
So anyway, we are ready to welcome people back into Times Square, and we are ready to stop dreaming and start doing again, and the place to do is in Times Square. We recognize that not everyone can get here, and not everyone is comfortable enough to rejoin life in Times Square. So we have this great webcast. You can tune in on our website, tsq.org, and you can watch our event from 6 o'clock at night until well after midnight. So it's just a way to join in all of the festivities that night from the comfort of your living room.
Yeah, now listen, guys, it's not just a camera on the ball with nothing happening. This is behind-the-scenes interviews with celebrities. They're going to continue to pull back that curtain, show you some of the operations that goes into making Times Square's New Year's Eve celebration that much more special. So a lot of details, a lot of information you can't get anywhere else but tsq.org. The same way you can't get the information you got here today anywhere else, Tom, besides Times Square today. So, listen, we're going to wrap this up soon because we've talked a lot about New Year's Eve, but you got to go back and prepare for it. The big celebration is coming. My hat is right here. I can't fit it over my head because of the headphones. I've also got a big head, but it's here. This is the 2020 New Year's hat that Herbert's going to be handing out. We got the exclusive first look at it here. Even if we didn't, I'm just going to say we did. Tom, you know, before we leave, I asked our three guests about their craziest New Year's Eve Times Square story. I'd be remiss to not ask you about one wild, wacky, unusual New Year's Eve story from you, the president of the Times Square Alliance.
That's rough, and I thought I would get away with just telling you my Herbert story, but each year we seem to top ourselves. So, and each year it's exciting, it's new, and I feel like we always raise the bar and we always meet the bar. And I think one of the challenges that that they gave me that I thought, wow, you know, they really must not like me because they set me up to fail, was a couple of years ago we honored the press. And we had 14 cars with the press that showed up at the same time that we had to find parking spaces for on 46th Street, and we had to get everyone in, managed at the same time the mayor is showing up with the police commissioner and his entourage. And I really thought they were trying to break me that year. And I think this was the year that it was about 3 degrees out for the entire day. So it really was a challenge. But the great thing about our team is no matter what the challenge, we all come together and we always meet the mark, and that ball drops and that confetti drops, and we welcome in the new year and think about all of the hopes, dreams that new year brings. So that's sort of what keeps me going 365 days a year.
Oh, that's awesome, Tom. That's a great story. And yeah, there's a lot, again, that goes back to that coordination, that communication between yourself and the rest of your team and then the other departments within the city that bring all of this together. One thing I'm looking forward to in 2022, Tom, is a full year of Times Square today because we are going to keep this thing rolling. I'm having so much fun doing this, Tom. I hope you're enjoying it.
I'm having a lot of fun, and we hope all of our viewers enjoy it as well.
Yes, absolutely. So listen, guys, if you have not caught the backlog of Times Square today, make sure you check out the Times Square Alliance YouTube channel, tsq.org. It's also up on the website. Audio versions are on Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, anywhere you get your podcasts, because you cannot get content like this anywhere else. Nowhere else are you getting the details of what's happening in Times Square from the source, the president of the Times Square Alliance. Tom, I appreciate you coming on this show with me each and every month. I'm looking forward to a great 2022 with you doing this show at the heart of Times Square. Any final words for you, for those viewers and listeners out there as we cross over into the new year?
David, thank you very much for everything that you do, and I am looking forward to ringing in the new year with you in Times Square this year, and I'm looking to 12 episodes of Times Square today in 2022.
Can't wait. Well, guys, listen again. Check out the Times Square Alliance on tsq.org, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the social medias, TikTok. Times Square NYC is the handle. You get all the most up-to-date information on a daily basis from the Times Square Alliance. But everybody out there, I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. I hope you have a great New Year's Eve, a great New Year's Day, and we will see you in 2022. Tom Harris, thank you, my friend.
David, thank you. Happy New Year.